For most of us, the name Creative Technology or Creative Labs is associated with some flavor of a SoundBlaster product. Be it the original SoundBlaster or the SoundBlaster 16 you can see here. Then there was the SoundBlaster R32 and 64 line. Here is the value-oriented offering from Creative Technology, a SoundBlaster 32. And of course the SoundBlaster Live. And later, Audigy products. All of them bearing the SoundBlaster emblem. But did you know that Creative Labs was part of a collaboration bringing a Slot 1 motherboard to the market? What is special about this motherboard is that it comes with an integrated SoundBlaster Live audio solution. This motherboard likely belonged to a Blaster PC, a product distributed by EMPAC in partnership with Creative Labs. Finding information about this board online is a lot more challenging than you might think. You won't find it on eBay, and although there is an entry on the RetroWeb, the CPU support list is empty. Fortunately, you can find the manual of the motherboard. At the time of recording, there is only one BIOS from 2001 available for download. This is all the information we have about this board, but it is enough to get started. If only it would work. This board was lent to me by a viewer who discovered it among a pile of hardware at a scrapyard. Given that it was found amidst a heap of other motherboards, graphic cards and whatnot, it's remarkable that the board appears to be in good shape, seemingly not missing any components on the front side. The back, however, is riddled with scratches and deep dents. The board's owner informed me that it does not boot. Despite his attempts to repair some of the traces, he was unsuccessful in reviving the board. So he contacted me and gave me the opportunity to have a look at it. Currently, the only information I have is that the post analyzer card displays no activity when the board is powered on. Nevertheless, the board's power delivery is reportedly working. I really hope that all there is are a few more traces that have been cut. Hopefully, we will find all of them and see this board power on. But before we look at the damage, a quick word from PCBWay, the sponsor of today's video. If you are in need of printed circuit boards, 3D printing, CNC machining or large quantity injection molding, then you should definitely check out PCBWay.com. I have received the 3D printed CPU trays I ordered a couple of days ago, and as always, the results are perfect. Now I can finally go through my CPU collection where many CPUs require their pins straightened. Links to the 3D model as well as to PCBWay.com are in the video description. Thank you PCBWay for sponsoring today's episode. Now let's have a look and see if we can figure out why this board does not show any signs of life. I did not power it on because I'm sure it is as the owner described. And I have already seen that there are still a few traces that need to be reconnected. There is really no reason to plug in a power cord at this stage. This board is plagued by 3 issues. Being tossed into a pile with other hardware has resulted in bent pins of components. This is particularly evident on the back of the board, but there was also an issue with one IC on the front. One of its legs is bent and dangerously close to another one. I do not want to take any chances, so better straighten it and reflow the solder on all the connections on this side of the IC chip. I have thoroughly inspected the remaining ICs on the front and found no additional damage. The rear side of the board has mostly protruding leads of sockets and through-hole components. Normally, these leads are short enough to not make contact in case they are bent towards each other. However, in the event scratches uncover traces of an unrelated circuit in the vicinity, the risk of creating an unwanted contact between one of the leads and a trace does increase. And in case I was unsure, I used a multimeter to verify that none of the leads accidentally connect to an exposed trace or copper plane. Some of the physical impacts must have been so strong that they slightly deformed the holes where the leads go through. I checked the entire board for chipped solder mask, and whenever I found something that should be addressed, I immediately fixed it. After I was certain the inspected area was good, I applied solder mask over the exposed copper and hardened it using a UV lamp. While inspecting the board for bent leads and scratches, you might have already noticed the second significant issue: fragile solder joints. Specifically in the area where the memory sockets and the PCI slots are soldered to the board, multiple solder joints have weakened due to what seems to have been physical impact on the leads. These connections look very similar to cold or dry solder joints. I do not believe that any of these joints are currently causing a problem, but their appearance does give me a slight sense of discomfort. I'd rather fix the issue now to prevent the situation where those solder joints are the reason for this board failing sometime in the future. I meticulously examined all solder joints and reworked every single one where I could see fractures, holes, or any other irregularities. Flux really helps to melt the old solder, which is almost 25 years old by now. Sometimes I had to mix a little bit of fresh solder with the old solder, because it wouldn't liquefy properly anymore. And after about 45 minutes I was finally done. It was a lot of work, but after fixing over 50 solder joints, I'm happy that I did put the effort into it. And now to the third and last issue of this board: broken traces. The owner of the board has already tried to fix some of them. Unfortunately, it looks like a major part of the solder mask was removed using fine sanding paper or a fiberglass pencil. I prefer using an engraving pen because I can focus on a very small area and keep a lot of the original solder mask in place. There are many scratches and dents on this board, and it is not always clear if a scratch went deep enough, damaging the traces beneath. Before I start removing the original solder mask, I apply isopropyl alcohol over the scratch, which reveals the condition of the copper traces below, and in most cases, the traces are still intact. The emphasis here is in most cases, because there is the occasional scratch that went just a bit too deep, severing the copper traces beneath. This is just a single trace that requires a jump wire, but it could be enough to be the reason of a non-working board. After reconnecting the trace and cleaning the area, I use a multimeter to verify continuity. Let's now focus on the area where a repair attempt was made before I received the board. Here are the wires connecting the severed traces, but I feel the wires are a bit too long and go in different directions. Unfortunately, it is not as clean as I would like it to be. I believe we can improve this. I just don't want to take any chances. If this board remains in a non-working state, then it shall not be because I did not spend those few extra minutes to make sure everything is perfect. After the wires were removed, I used solder wick and isopropyl alcohol to clean up the area. I want the wires to be as short as possible, because as we have seen before, they tend to go in all directions, increasing the likelihood of touching another trace. But we still need them long enough to attach properly to the dedicated copper trace. Once a wire is firmly connected, I can use a knife to cut it at the location where solder no longer creates a bond with the board. This has to be done extremely careful, because I do not want to cut the trace of the motherboard by accident. And in a similar way we can fix the remaining two traces. It will be a bit more difficult soldering those tiny wires so close to each other, but it is still manageable. Maybe a smaller soldering tip would have been better in this situation. And this is the final result. I hope you agree with me that it looks quite a bit better compared to the original repair. There was a similar spot with another 3 traces cut. It is basically the same work, just this time we do have some leads right next to it. Nevertheless, I think the result is acceptable. And then there was the last trace that needed fixing on the front of the board. It was right next to the IC with a bent leg. If you find damage on a board that was clearly caused by physical force, it is always a good idea to check the surroundings. Chances are quite high that there is something else that needs to be fixed. And that's it! I reconnected 5 or 6 traces and reworked the 3 traces from the previous repair attempt. All leads with solder joint issues have the solder reflown, and I tried to make sure none of the bent leads touch anything they shouldn't. I will not apply solder mask just yet, because we first need to verify that the board is working. If it is not, I would first double check my work, which I can't do if the solder mask is already over the repaired traces. The blaster board works! I am so relieved that it looks like there was nothing else wrong with this board. And although I'm really happy, I'm also a bit sad because the board will go back to its owner. However, you can cheer me up by giving this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more exciting content in the future. The board will be with me for another week or two, so you have the chance to tell me in the comments what you would like to see me do with this board. What operating system should I install? Do you have any preference of the CPU? Keep in mind that we may be voltage and multiplier limited. And of course, we will try the SoundBlaster Live component. We will also have a look at the BIOS, because this board has a version that is not available on the RetroWeb. We will create a backup and send it over to preserve it for the future. And this is all I have for you today. What do you think about this Slot 1 motherboard? Did you have one of those back in the day? Or do you still have it? I may be interested in buying it from you. Finally, I want to thank PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. And a big thanks to all my Patreons who support this channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in one of my other videos.